Hello. Ooh. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello. Hi. Hi, everybody. Greetings on this lovely Sunday evening, afternoon. Hello, wherever you are. Gonna give people just a few seconds to join, and then I'm gonna dive in because I got some things to say. I'm DaynaLN Knuckles, the People's Oracle. I am here for this full moon. I'm offering a reading for this new moon in Sidereal Taurus. And I got some things I want to say about it. As always, we've got to start with the 2022 Sidereal Astrology Guide. I'm in the back. And I want to read the fill in the blank for this new moon, which says, establishing a new status quo. Establishing a new status quo. We need a new status quo, right? Right? Wouldn't you agree that the state of normal in this society is trouble? It's trouble. Tragedies are commonplace. All kinds of diseases. People are passing away. How will we get to this new status quo? How do we establish a new status quo? Well, you have to know what the status quo is first. How can you establish something new when you have not gotten a clear and sober grip on what is? How will you differentiate the old from the new? How will you know that what you are establishing, what you are creating, what you are establishing is new and not old? As I was saying, that Spirit said it's not about your feelings. It's not about your feelings. Especially when your body and your capacity to feel and to discern the meaning of what you feel has been occupied by entities and institutions whose sole goal is their own power. So you cannot rely on your feelings. Oprah Gucci, Jazz, you were in my dream last night. I just remembered that. I have to remember what it was about, but anyways. Our feelings cannot be the driving force for establishing a new status quo when our capacity to feel and to discern what those feelings are communicating to us, as well as how we should respond or react to those feelings, has been occupied, meaning it has been co-opted, meaning that the lens through which we experience, witness, and perceive our own feelings is not in service of our own survival. It is not in service of our own safety. Tell me that our feelings and the meaning we assign to them is in service of our own safety and survival, when, rather than refusing to participate and be fodder for death and violence, we pay the corporations money for backpacks that will protect our children from bullets being sprayed in their classroom. We've accepted the status quo. We've made peace with it. We're acclimating coming generations so that it will be their status quo and normal. Oh, don't worry. This is just what school is. This is what being a good citizen is. Right? So, as I was meditating on this new moon, hey, all my YouTube friends, as I was meditating on this new moon, this question of how can we establish a new status quo? What is the status quo that we need to comprehend and confront and look square in the face at? What is this status quo that we need to confront? What is the reality? And it is that you and I are not in relationship with each other. You and your spouse, your partner, your significant other, you are not in intimate relationship with each other. You and your children, you are not in relationship with each other. Your boss, your manager, your supervisor, no. Your legislative representative, you are not in a relationship. And you can believe that you are in relationship with these people, but you're not. Who are you in relationship then with? Who are you relating to? Well, if you're in a romantic relationship, you are in relationship with partner. You are in a relationship with wife. You are in a relationship with spouse. When you are relating to your offspring, you are in a relationship with child. You are in a relationship with youth. When you are relating to your manager or supervisor, you are in relationship with authority. You are in relationship with power. When you go to a restaurant and you are ready to order your meal, you are in relationship with server. You are not in relationship with the person who is in front of you. So much so that no matter how your partner behaves towards you, no matter how your spouse or your significant other relates to you and behaves towards you, the image you uphold over them, the expectation that you have for them, the goal that you assign to them is that of partner. So whatever you bring, whatever story, whatever way you've been indoctrinated, whatever past experiences that have comprised the story and role of partner, that's who you're relating to. When you are parenting and you are in relationship with your offspring, you are not relating to an actual person. You are relating to the role and the expectation of child. And when that person who is your offspring does not fulfill the role and expectation of child, you punish them. You get out your little phone and you go on your social media app and you press record so that you can humiliate your offspring for not fulfilling the role and expectation of child to your liking. Humiliation is a powerful and violent weapon. It is a harm that goes unnamed. We don't want to be seen as too proud. We don't want to be seen as caring what other people think of us. We don't want to be seen as wanting and needing and desiring the validation of others. That's pride too. Right? And so when we talk about the status quo, and when we talk about the roles that we are relating to, we have to ask the question, where do these expectations come from? When you think of your ideal romantic partner and you set out on your journey to find them, and everyone you meet just kind of misses the mark, but you still hold them to the expectation of that ideal. Where did the ideal come from? Let me ask you this. Can you define, imagine your ideal child, let's say, without referencing capitalism, without referencing patriarchy, and without referencing whiteness? Can you? And then there's really the question of being indoctrinated into prioritizing romantic relationships over all other kinds of relationships. Why? Why are we indoctrinated into prioritizing romantic relationships over all other relationships? Why? Why is that? What is the purpose and function? Why are we indoctrinated into prioritizing our physical attraction to a prospective romantic partner over all other types of attraction? Where and how is it that we become attracted physically to what we are attracted to? Who told you? How did you learn what is beautiful? Where did you learn what is, quote, appropriate behavior, end quote, for a child? Can you define the role and expectations of child without making you, the parent, have power over the child? Can you define your expectations of child in a way that does not require unquestioned deference to you? The reason why you need unquestioned deference to you from your child is because you live in a society that burdens you, the biological parents, with the sole responsibility, or you are solely responsible for the survival of that child. You wouldn't require deference if you were sharing the burden of survival. You would not need to have complete control. So why does your expectations of child serve your power over them? Why are they punished when they don't defer? Ooh, you know what that sounds a lot like? It sounds a lot like your relationship with the United States government or the government wherever you live. It sounds a lot like your relationship with your manager, boss, or superior. If you don't defer to the United States government by paying your taxes, things like that, they'll threaten your housing. Your food will become insecure. You are threatened with imprisonment. And look at the ways that we just pass that right on to our children. We accept the status quo that has been placed on us, and we try our hardest to acclimate our children to that status quo so that they are prepared to defer to the authority that they will encounter out in the world, that they will be prepared to be humiliated. We humiliate our children to prepare them for humiliation. We are violent towards our children to prepare them for the violence. Oof, we do the same thing to our romantic partners as well. We threaten and coerce and threaten with rejection. I'm going to take my love away from you. I'm going to take my adoring gaze for you. Look at the power of that. The power of connection. The thing that we won't acknowledge, but it's really running everything. Threatening to withhold your connection to your offspring. Threatening to control your connection with your significant other. Threatening to withhold your connection to your parents. Threatening to, oh wait, you don't threaten to withhold your connection to your employer, and you definitely don't threaten to withhold your connection to the United States government or whoever the governing body is where you are. Why is that? Why don't you threaten to withhold your connection to the United States government? Have they fulfilled the role and expectation they're assigned? Establishing a new status quo. There's a way that all of these roles are shaped and defined by capitalism. Your relationship with your offspring is completely controlled by capitalism. Your relationship with the children you have born, the children you are responsible and obligated for, is defined, shaped, and controlled by capitalism. Your capacity for intimacy and connection with your own children is shaped and defined and controlled by your need to sell your labor and time in exchange for currency, which you use to buy housing and food from the same corporations that you sell your labor and time to. Your capacity to be emotionally available to yourself is shaped and controlled by capitalism. How would your relationship with your offspring be different were it not for the fact that you need to sell your labor to survive? Would you send your child to school with a bulletproof backpack if you didn't have to sell your labor to survive, if you weren't preparing your child to sell their labor to survive? How would your upbringing have been different if your parents, the caregivers responsible for you, did not have to sell their time, money, dignity, self-respect, and pride in exchange for currency in order to buy housing and food, right? Now, we have established the issue here. We are not in relationship with each other. We are not in relationship with each other. And so I want to, before I move on to tarot here, I want to leave you with some actionable items here that you can use to begin to establish a new status quo in your life and in your relationships. And I want you to start with your mother. I want you to think about what it is or how you experienced your relationship with your mother growing up. What was it like? Let's talk about it, right? How do you feel about it? What was your experience of it? Get your journals. You can write this. You can write this down during your quiet time. I hope you're having some kind of quiet time. And then I want to talk to you about, or I want you to talk to yourself about, what were the expectations then and now that you had and have for your mother? What were the expectations that you have for her? I keep hearing stuff, y'all. Don't mind me looking around. What were the expectations? Write them down. You need to see them on paper. Get them out of your head. Who do you feel like she was obligated to be to you? Who do you feel like your mother was obligated to feel, to be to you? Was your mother that person to you? And then I want you to write, which one is it? Was it capitalism? Was it patriarchy? Or was it whiteness? Now, right, which one of those was the primary thing that kept your mother from being the person? I don't know, y'all. I'm sensitive to bugs, so if y'all see me looking around, I'm not crazy. It's just, I live in a swamp. Anyways, before you do the whiteness, patriarchy, capitalist thing, I really want you to spend some time figuring out, where did these expectations come from? Where did you learn, realize, begin to feel entitled to your mother being this specific person to you? Right? Where did they come from? What's the root? What is the source? What is the source of the expectations? Where did you get the definition of mother? Where did you get it from? What's the root of that? And how well did your mother fulfill that role or expectation for you? Now, let me be clear here. I'm not saying this or posing these questions as a way to abdicate our parents or to ignore, deny, explain away the fact that they have been harmful to us. But if we want to, establish a new status quo, we absolutely must identify where we are holding on to this status quo in our own lives. I think mother is an easy place to start because that is where we have the most emotionally charged relationship with a role and expectation. I mean, look at society. This whole moment that we're in is anyone with a uterus's sole function is to conceive, gestate, and birth children, right? And the state wants to be in control of that. They're not doing it to men. They're not doing it to people with penises, right? They're doing it to people with uteruses. Right? As we're examining how these roles and expectations are taking up space in our relationships, right? I think one of the most radical things that we can do is to see and acknowledge our mother as a human, as a person, first. And I think what this gives us permission to do is to see ourselves as a human, as a person first. not our gender first, not our salary or bank account number first, not our sexual identity, not who we choose to engage in sex or romance with first, not gay, straight, queer, trans first, not black, white, Latino, Italian, French first. Those are all constructs. They're all roles with expectations. And we bring them into our relationships and superimpose them on the people in front of us. When we look at the mirror, we look in the mirror, we superimpose on that reflection all of these roles and expectations, and we judge and chastise and reject and mutilate the parts of us that don't fulfill those roles and expectations, and then we go and do it to everybody else. We judge and shame, threaten, coerce, be violent towards those who don't fulfill the roles and expectations that are assigned to them. It's violence. If we want a new status quo, we just can't go out into the world and scream to people, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Oh yeah. Right? We have to start with, I'm on the live, Saru.
That's cool, but can I send hi to you?
Yeah, but if you walk through that, people are going to see you in your underwear.
Hi.
Hi, I love you.
Love you too.
Bye. Right? Like, we have to start somewhere, and I want us to feel like there's something we can do, because there really is something that we can do. Right? There is something we can do. And I really think it begins with how we relate to one another. When you go to a restaurant and you're engaging with the server, you're holding them to the expectation and role of server. And when they don't fulfill that role and expectation, you humiliate them. You don't tip. You take a picture of your receipt. You secretly videotape them. How dare they not fulfill the role and expectation of server to me? How dare they? I'm going to humiliate them. I paid for this. So you mean to tell me that every interaction that you have with another human, its success or failure is defined by how well it served your interest as a laborer in capitalism? Right? When we relate to our parents, our mother, we are indoctrinated into this idea, this construct of mother. Whole psychological frameworks and theories are centered around what our mother did or didn't do to us. Whole identity, trauma, what did your mother do or not do to you? And then we carry that around with us everywhere in every relationship. We parent our own children based on what our mother did or did not do to us, based on the mothering she was able to or not able to give to us. When we meet a partner romantically, we're engaging with them based on what our mother did or did not do to us. Release her. It's gotta be a bug back there. I hear it. Y'all, I'm tripping. Okay, pray my strength, y'all. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm looking out right now. Okay. Ain't no bug. It's just me tripping. Right? But release her so you can release yourself. When you go get your groceries, when you go get your groceries and you check it out at the checkout, are you relating with a human, a person, or are you relating with the construct of cashier? Right? I'm not asking you to have grace to the point of self-harm. Absolutely not. But the more that you're able to greet others as actual people and humans, not reduced to what you perceive their gender to be, not reduced to what you believe they're obligated to do for you because of this capitalist society we believe in, we live in and believe in, right? The more that we can relate to actual people, the more that we can notice when we are not relating to actual people, but we're relating to a construct. Start paying attention to your interactions. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Right? Be mindful and present in your interactions with each other. Are you relating to the person in front of you, or are you relating to their perceived gender and the sexuality that you assign to them? Are you relating to their race, right? And I don't necessarily mean in your actual interactions. Yes, with your children. Yes, with your mother. When you're interacting with strangers, it's just what it is, right? We gotta treat men like it's Russian roulette. Every single one of them could be a loaded gun. That's the way that it is, right? But in our intimate one-on-one interactions where we have developed a measure of safety and security, this is where to start, right? I have to keep asking this question: whose vision determines what you see? Whose imagination are we living in? Whose thoughts and ideas have informed how we view this world and the world that we live in? We have to establish a new status quo. Now, I've got an announcement. Wednesday, June 1st in the evening, I'm going to be facilitating a discussion, and this discussion is called Decolonizing Our Survival Instincts. Let's talk about it and be about it. This will be the first of, I hope, many opportunities for us to come together, and I'm hopeful for the community that can grow from this. The first session, though, I want to talk to you guys and myself, us, about what are the barriers to realizing the change, to establishing a new status quo. What are the barriers that are actually there? And because this is divination for liberation, I'm going to be talking about a specific placement in your sidereal birth chart. I'm going to be talking about your Mars, right? And we're going to give language to this placement to talk about what is it in your personal lived experience that makes it scary, difficult, impossible, too hard for you to do the radical thing that's required to establish a new status quo. And what is the radical thing for you? Where can you begin personally, right? We're going to do more sessions, and these sessions are going to be recorded for anybody to watch on YouTube. They are going to be dictated. We have some scribes that are going to be taking notes, and those documents are going to be made available. The next session after the one on June 1st in the evening Central Time will be a rebuttal brain dump, right? We're going to talk about all of the rebuttals to these radical things that we have, that come up for us, that we believe, that societally and socially makes it too hard for us to change. Let's get it out. Let's talk about it. Not to prove you wrong, not to debate over it, not to argue, right? Let's get it out of our systems. Let's give voice to it. Let's not feel ashamed for believing it's too hard, because it really is hard. right? And then the third session is going to be the one that I really hope to do a lot of, is communal imagining. We're going to come together and practice imagining. We are sorely out of practice, but we need to practice. We need to build that muscle. We need to work at and build the skill and technique and tool of imagining. We need to learn to identify when we are reimagining what already exists. And we need to learn how to identify when we're actually imagining something new. We need practice. We have so much practice saying all the ways we can't. We need practice imagining. So when I talk about liberation as the act of imagining together, that's what we're going to do. No pressure to make a 5-point plan and execute it, though I know that people who attend this will have the means, will be sparked with the motivation, will build and bridge connections that will lead to making some of these things a reality. But let's do it. Let's do it. All right. With that being said, I've got my Afro Tarot 2 by Jessi Jumanji, and I am going to pull some cards for this new moon. I was listening to my praise and worship gospel playlist before I came on, and as I was setting up my lights and everything, and a song by Kirk Franklin came on that said, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, the captive are set free. The wounded are made whole. You'll find rest for your soul. Where the Spirit is, there is liberty." There is liberty where the divine is. If there is no liberty, if there is no liberation, it's not there. You are the divine. Where you go, when you make space for, open up, right? Welcome that connection and embodiment. There's the opportunity for liberation. There's a scripture that says, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there the divine is in the midst. So we're going to gather. We're going to gather. We're going to come together and invite the divine, and we are going to imagine together. That's liberation. That's liberation. You know you are captive when you cannot imagine outside of your circumstances. When the space in your brain where no one sees, where no one perceives, where no one can judge, where no one can hold you up to expectations, where no one can coerce you or punish you or abuse you, yet in your own mind, you do not feel free or possess the ability to imagine. So we need some practice. We need to practice. We need to develop the skill of pointing out when the whiteness in our brain is oppressing us, when the capitalism in our nervous system is making us act against our own best interest and survival. We need to be able to point that out, you know? So where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, the captive are set free. The wounded are made whole. I'll find rest for my soul. Where the Spirit is, there is liberty. 6 of Staves. 6 of Staves. This, okay. This particular iteration of the 6 of Staves, this person has a face covering on. And as soon as I saw that, I was reminded of the power of strategic anonymity and concealment. We're in war. And there's two things that are necessary when you're in war. One, you must know who your enemy is. And two, you must know how your enemy functions. You must know your enemy better than you know yourself. Now, I went live earlier last week. The video was up on my Instagram, and I was talking about understanding your abuser as a fawning trauma response, right? Not understanding your enemy so that you know how to destroy them, but extending humanity and understanding to your abuser because you feel powerless to escape the relationship and the dynamic. And so your understanding of them is a way to anticipate their abuse, right? We do this in relationships all the time. We want to know why they're emotionally unavailable rather than sitting with the in the moment impact of their lack of availability. We center them, their experience, and their identity, and allow it to take up the entire space in the relationship. No room for me and my feelings of hurt and harm, right? And so this is what we do with capitalism. We need to understand and extend humanity to our capitalist overlords. That's a fawning trauma response. And it's an attempt to anticipate when they will threaten your security and your food source, right? But I want to talk about this within the context of the lost art of strategy and strategic concealment. We have somehow come to a point where we weaponize expectations of authenticity. We have this expectation that people for whom English is not their first language conceal their accent, not conceal their accent, right? Like, don't code switch, be authentic, speak your mother tongue, be as Black as possible, be openly queer and trans, right? And we weaponize this. It's almost like, who can expose themselves to the harm of our abusers the most? Who can put themselves in the line of fire the most? Show me how authentic you are. Show me how real you are. You're not Black enough. You're not really the child of immigrants. You're not really queer. But we weaponize this. Be authentic. You're so fake, right? And I want to differentiate here between the docility of a trauma response of conforming to the role and expectation as a means to be accepting and embraced in society versus strategy, strategic concealment, being fully aware of the power dynamic, yet strategizing in that power dynamic, right? We've kind of reached this extreme, right? I'm not my ancestors. Oof, doesn't that make you cringe? Which is to say, I'm not docile. I'm not compliant. I'm just not going to accept your oppression. I'm not going to let you humiliate me. Ooh, baby girl, friend, if you are selling your labor and do not own the means of production, you are docile. If you woke up the morning after the massacre of children in South Texas and you sent your children to school, you are docile and compliant. If you're paying your student loan debt, you are docile and compliant. You're right. You're not your ancestors because you don't know the truth. You don't recognize the nature of the power dynamic. There's this other movement that's concurrent with this, right? Rebranding and repackaging adjacency to whiteness and patriarchy to make it seem as if we're consciously choosing it, to make it seem that we're intentionally choosing it, right? The divine feminine being subservient and submissive to maleness, right? You're choosing it. All you just did was repackage and reinvent patriarchy. That's not new, friend. You want to ingratiate yourself to your oppressor. It's fawning. It is fawning to act like you are choosing this power dynamic where males hoard and violently lord over us with their assumed power and authority. To act like you've chosen that, that's called a fawning response, right? So here's a question for us that I don't have the answer to. I just got a question. How can we awaken to and become aware of the power dynamics that inform our relationships and the interactions that we have across the board with everyone? How can we become present to those power dynamics? How can we begin to think strategically about the power of concealment, right? The wound of Taurus is rejection. The coping strategy is docility, but the gift is approval, self-approval that comes from being approved by others. When you are actually approving of yourself, you don't have to perform it, right? Self-approval is not a performance for other people, right? I mean, and this is what it really boils down to. I love this card because it's really giving me this vibe of recognizing our propensity to perform everything. We gotta perform authenticity. We have to perform self-approval, right? Who is it for? Who is it for? I don't have the answer to that. Who is it for? Right? We've got the Emperor. These some heavy ass hitting cards, y'all. Mm. Dominion. That's the word that came to me. Dominion is about taking ownership of and claiming power over. When I did a live earlier last week, I talked about the ways that we project our own values and beliefs onto our enemy. We believe that authenticity is a value of our enemy, right? Right? We believe that our enemy values integrity. We believe that our enemy does not want to be perceived as a hypocrite. But as I said in that video, that's your value. That's your conviction and your belief. Your value and your conviction and your belief is authenticity. You don't want to be perceived as a hypocrite. You value relationship and community. You are afraid of being rejected. You are afraid of being humiliated. You are afraid of being invalidated. They don't care. Who is your enemy? Do you know your enemy? They have one goal, and they are so good at it. They are enviable. Power. That's it. Over you. Your body, your thoughts, your comings and goings, your food, your shelter, your whole life. You, your offspring, their offspring, power. That's it. One thing. They'll do and say whatever. Power over you. Meanwhile, we're over here arguing about what pro-life really means. You're not really pro-life if they do not care. This is what I mean when I talk about not actually relating to the people or the person in front of us. You're relating to an idea of a human, of a person. Well, if you're a person, you would treat other people this way. If you were really a human, if you were really pro-life, if you were really small government, you would. How can you really be pro-life if? That is not their thing, it's your thing. People want to throw projection around, right? Like it's like, you're just projecting. It's like, first of all, everybody's projecting. The whole thing is a projection. None of this exists, right? But what I mean about in this particular situation is you cannot see what is happening. You can't establish a new status quo because you cannot see that we are in war, and you can't see your enemy, and you can't see who and what they really are. How can you differentiate between what your values and your ideals are and theirs? Look at the consequences and fruit of their actions. What is the consequence? What is the impact? Dominion means to take ownership of and claim power over yourself. Take up some space in your own mind, imagination, and your body. Stop projecting onto your enemy the values you want them to have. You can't establish a new status quo because you don't see that the status quo is their power over you, everyone, and everything. They don't care about being a hypocrite. They don't care if their actions don't align with what they say. They don't care if what they say doesn't sound smart or make cohesive sense. They don't care if you insult them. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. All they want is power, and they've got it. So let's talk about the art of strategic concealment. Let's talk about dominion over the self. Spirit is saying to me that your value is to control other people's perception of you to the point that you are willing to perform whatever it is you need to perform, and so that other people can see you the way that you want them to see you. And guess what? That's your value. I promise you, the enemy does not have that value. The enemy is not concerned with how you see them. They do not care what you think of them. They do not care of how you judge them, insult them, point out their hypocrisies and inconsistencies. That's your value. You are the one that has been indoctrinated into upholding roles and expectations to the extent that you are putting yourself and your offspring in labor. You can't even see yourself. So when we talk about this dominion here, when we talk about this power, it's over you. It's not over how other people see you. And this is where we need some nuance. We need some distinctions. Who is it that you want to be accepted by? Who is it that you're seeking approval from? And to what end? Right? Who is your audience? Who are you performing for? Your enemy knows their audience very, 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 very well. And they know just the combination of words and images to use in order to convince their audience to continue to hand over their power to them. Right? So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Right? All of the performing. It's manipulation. Right? In the Wounds and Gifts workshop, and let me just pull this up real quick, my little spreadsheet of notes. In the Wounds and Gifts workshop, the wound of Venus is manipulation. Manipulation is what something looks like versus what it is. What something appears to be versus how it functions. And so manipulation is a way of concealing the truth of what something is in order to control how another person or group of people reacts or responds. Manipulation is, I want to elicit this emotional response or reaction from you, and so this is what I'm going to show you, right? This is seduction, right? Seduction is playing with what something looks like in order to elicit an emotional response, right? And then that coping strategy is dependence, right? So manipulate to elicit an emotional response. And the dependence is unconscious. You're not choosing to be dependent, but all you can react to is what you've seen, right? All you can react to is what you've seen. Your nervous system, your emotions, your feelings are reacting to what you witnessed, right? But the gift of Venus is approval, right? And it's really about becoming aware of, being present to all of the ways that we are performing for each other and the ways that we are expecting other people to perform for us. Shuck and jive for me, child. You're not playing the child role really well today. You're on punishment. Shuck and jive for me, partner. You're not playing romantic partner well today. I thought we were playing monogamous heterosexual relationship. And in my hot monogamous heterosexual relationship game, you be this, I be that, and then we can all be happy. Right? That's manipulation. We're all doing it all the time. Except for we can't tell the difference between the performance and the actual person. You can't look in the mirror and tell the difference between the performance and the actual person that is you. You done manipulated yourself You done seduced yourself into believing that the things you do and the roles you play are who you actually are. You've seduced yourself into believing that your sexuality is your identity, that your ethnicity is your identity, that your race is your identity, that your genitals are your identity, that your skin color is your identity, that you're, right? You seduced yourself. You believe it. So of course you cannot look at somebody else and see the difference between the roles that they play, the expectations that you have on them, and who they actually are. Look at your enemy in the face. What is the role that you are assigning to them? You are assigning the role of human with dignity, respect, and empathy. They do not got it. Why you keep giving it to them? So we got to establish a new status quo. Let's establish a new status quo. Let's pay attention to the ways that we are seduced. Let's pay attention to the ways that we seduce others. Let's come present to our performance for each other. Let's become present to the ways we crack the whip on the people in our lives when they don't perform the role and fulfill the expectations we've assigned to them. I don't mean don't have no boundaries. Your boundaries are about you. Your boundaries are about how you behave when you experience something that you don't like. Boundary is not about them. A boundary is about what your behaviors are, what you have the tolerance for, and what you do when you've reached the peak of your tolerance, right? So I'm not saying don't have boundaries. I'm just saying, are you in a relationship with a mannequin or a real person? Are you in a relationship with a role? Are you communicating with, talking to a role or an actual person? Do you see your enemy, or are you projecting onto them an image of the expectations that you have for yourself? Right? Let's call a thing what it is. Right? Let's call a thing what it is. Let's be real and let's be honest. At this particular new moon, there's so many things going on. We've got Mercury that is stationary direct, grinding into a square with Saturn that is stationary retrograde. We've got Mars and Jupiter both in Pisces, just having cleared their conjunction. This week we're in right now, today is May 29, 2022. This week that we are embarking upon is a pivot week. This is where we shift from the spring astrology story to the summer astrology story. Right? The summer astrology story is real chaotic. Not gonna lie, it's real chaotic. Right? But this moment that we're in right now is coming to terms with the fact that things are not what they appear to be. You have been seduced. You have been manipulated. You have been lied to. You have been disarmed of the capacity to protect yourself. You have been traumatized into a perpetual fawning response towards your capitalist overlords, also known as your supervisor and boss, and your government. You have been traumatized into a fawning response. You can't run. You believe that you can't fight. And if you freeze, how you gonna eat? All right? So let's take a moment, take off the glasses, and let's see, what are we really looking at? Who is really in front of us? I gave some exercises that you can do in examining your relationship and experience and upbringing with your mother. But these things can all be done for yourself. In what ways do you conflate your genitals and assigned gender, or even assumed self-assigned gender, with yourself? What are the expectations that you have internalized for yourself based on your gender? What have you been told? based on your sexual identity, your sexuality, what are the expectations that you've internalized, that you have for yourself? Based on your perceived assigned race, what are the expectations, right? One of the things that I like to talk about is, because I'm a person that doesn't like labels, right? I don't want to have no conversations about my sexuality. I don't want to have no conversations about my gender. Yes, that's a privilege because I present as cis, hetero, gendered Black woman, right? But what I like to say is I am who I am when I'm doing what I'm doing, and when I'm not doing it, that's not who I am, right? And so if I give you language, if I give you labels, that's the moment that you stop interacting with me and you start interacting a label. The minute I tell you I'm a mother, now you're going to perceive everything that I do through that lens. Well, mothers do this. Mothers are expected to this. The role of mother means this, right? The minute I give a label to who I like to have sex with or who I might or might not be attracted to, now you've already decided who I am. When I tell you I'm a Black woman, which I am, you know, but when I tell you that, you've already decided based on how you've been indoctrinated who and what I am. You're going to perceive everything I say and do that. If I raise my voice, I'm angry, not passionate, not spirited, not excited. I'm angry, right? 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 So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Okay? Now, Wednesday, June 1st, hold that in the evening. We're going to be on Zoom. I'm going to send out the registration link. Is free. You can donate if you want, but it's free. I'll send out the link. We'll be putting it up all on socials, and I'll see you Wednesday. I wasn't going to do altar call today, but Hakeem, if you still on here, text me and let me know. You want to do altar call? Let me know. And you know what? One last thing, like, I'm a person, you're a person, we're people. And everything else is up in the air. Who am I to you when we're relating? How do I treat you? How do I make you feel? That should tell you what you need to know, right? And we cut ourselves short when we hold people to roles with expectations that are almost always out of alignment with who they're actually being to us. No one can be your mother. Based on the role and expectations assigned to that, nobody can fulfill that. And you'll be angry for the rest of your life looking for somebody to be your mother. The role of father is impossible to fill. Your child will never be that. Release them. You're never going to be the perfect sibling, daughter, son, offspring of your caregivers. Free yourself. Let yourself go. Just because somebody holds you to the expectation to perform this role in this way doesn't mean you have to hold yourself to this expectation to perform this way. Free yourself. There's liberty where the spirit of the divine is. Free yourself. Let yourself go. I know we go from one religion to another, hoping to perform that one well, hoping that we can live up to the expectations that it has for us. And maybe you will, maybe you don't. But we treat our gender and sexuality the same way. We were pretending to be cisgendered, and now we're performing queerness, transgenderness, right? That comes with a set of roles and expectations too. And when you don't fulfill those well enough either, I bet you the queer community and the trans community has some words for you too, right? Or even the cisgendered folks have some words for you based on, did you change your name? Did you get Confirmation surgery. Are you on T? Do you have a beard? Do you have breasts? Can you have children? Are you menstruating? Right? All of these roles and all of these expectations, right? I mean, it's really these systems that we live in that says that you have to choose. I need to know how you identify so I can decide whether or not I'm going to let you sell your labor to me, whether I'm going to pay you, whether or not you can have housing here, whether or not I'm going to serve you food, right? These systems make us choose. They send you a paper in the mail. They come knock on your door and tell you to check a box. Not so that they can give you health care, make sure you have access to food in the food desert that you live in, build more schools, hire more teachers, plant more trees, clean the water. That's not what they use that information for. They use it to gerrymander your voting district so that you are effectively stripped of power, right? So today's reading is about strategic concealment. Today's reading, today's new moon, is about dominion over self. Catch the performance. Who's your audience? Can you see the ways that you seduce others? Can you see the ways that you project onto those who harm you? Expectations that are incongruent with their actual actions, right? I'm gonna go. I've been on here for an hour. This has been a good read. I'm DaynaLN Knuckles, the People's Oracle. You just got some divination for liberation. One last announcement, June 11, I'm doing study salon number 2, Basics for Beginners. We're going to be talking about planets, signs, and houses in Sidereal Astrology, divination for liberation style. The link is going to be in the description of this video. If you're on Instagram, the link is in my bio. If you're on Twitter, it's on my timeline. I will see you guys soon. Please take care of yourself. Please wear your mask. Please, please, please wear your mask. Please, please, please. Love y'all. Bye.